Greetings ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. I will be your host, Thrones, bringing you another role-playing build known as the Gourmet. The Gourmet in a nutshell is a role-playing build intended specifically for a niche casual playstyle, questing around and all around normal content. It is not made for veteran content, nor is it made for any type of min-maxing or any type of difficult content or veteran dungeons or trials or whatever. The build is inspired by the concept of being a cook, and the race is inspired by the secreted identity of the gourmet we have to kill in Skyrim as part of the Dark Brotherhood questline. The build can be any race, any class, however for mine I will be using a Dragonknight as it offers flames and fire, as cooking and roasting are vital parts of being a cook. And now for the build. For the race, as I said in the introduction, I went with the orc because the orc is usually the race that the gourmet is, that basically his secret identity. For the class I did go with Dragonknight because Dragonknight offers a little bit of fire and flames, and you know, as a cook you want to roast your meat before eating it. Unless, well, you're a bosmer. In that case you don't want to cook it, you just want to eat it raw. Anyways, I went full stamina on this one because of the gear I'm using is stamina focus, plus I wanted to go with dual wielding and the two-hander on the back bar to cut and slash the enemy open. So for that reason I went with stamina. For the Mundus stone I went with the thief stone, and I did go with the vampire because vampires drink the blood of enemies, and that goes well with leaving not a single part of the meal uncooked. You can add a little bit of flair here and there, maybe, you know, going with a mirror worshipper or whatever, but everything is purely subjective. For the skills, I did go with a little bit more weapon abilities than I anticipated because, well, I kind of like the new animations of Flurry. So yeah, on the front bar I went with Burning Embers. The only reason why I went with this one is it deals damage over time, flame damage over time, and you heal for 100% of the damage done with the ability, so it heals you quite well and gives you quite a sustain to stay alive. However, that will not be a problem considering some of the sets we're gonna use, so you can go whatever the heck you want for this one. If you're not a Dragonknight, maybe try around, I don't know, if you're a Nightblade, maybe an Execute here. If you're a Templar, maybe, I don't know, the Spears or whatever, just play around. It's a role-playing build. For the main spammable, I went with Bloodthirst. The only reason why I went with Bloodthirst is because I get even more healing back. I really like to stay alive, honestly, you know. Using the blood as you're cutting the enemy open, you just drink it. As a vampire, kind of fits the theme. I went with Rending Slashes. It deals bleed damage over time. The reason why I went with this one is because I'm using the Master Dual Wielding and another set that boosts a little bit of the bleed damage. I'm with Deadly Cloak to cut the enemy even more further beyond, and the Flames of Oblivion I salted because of the Major Prophecy and Savagery, plus it yeets 3 balls of fire at the enemy, dealing X amount of damage. If you're not a Dragonknight, you can just go with Camouflaged Hunter, or if you want to go with a Mage route, go with Mage Light for a little bit extra damage. However, this build is not optimized, it's just purely fun. You can technically use it for non-veteran DLC dungeons, and or basically non-DLC veteran dungeons, or you can go for any normal dungeon, all around quests. It shouldn't be a problem. For the ultimate I went with Rend, the same reason why I went with the Bloodthirst, because when we use the ability it deals X amount of bleed damage, which is boosted by one of our sets, and you heal for the damage done, so you're quote-unquote drinking the blood while you're cutting him. Goes really nicely with the theme. On the back bar I went with Barbed Trap because you want to trap your enemies or your prey that you want to eat or devour. Stampede because I went with the Maelstrom back stuff, and I also went with Carve for even more bleed and some more survivability, considering it gives you a shield when you use it. I went with Molten Armaments to make my enemy for us to get Major Brutality and Sorcery, plus it turns our weapons on fire, which helps us with cooking the enemy alive. Plus you get Empower for the duration if you go with Molten Armaments Morph, and I like that. For the last skill, it's all again Flames of Oblivion for the Major Prophecy and Savagery, and for the ultimate I went with Onslaught, giving us physical and spell penetration for the tough enemies, basically breaking the bones. For the gear. Now here's the fun part. The inspiration for this build was basically the Grizzly Gourmet, which drops in the Red Petal dungeon, I think, and every time you deal light attack damage grants you a stack of Baker's Delight for 5 seconds. When you gain 3 stacks, you create a sweet roll next to your target for 5 seconds. It basically just puts a sweet roll that you can eat while you're eating your enemies at the same time, so really a glutton all through and through. When you touch or basically eat the sweet roll, you restore either health, magic and stamina. You either get Empower for 10 seconds or you get Major Force for 10 seconds. Thing is, we already have Empower from this one, so if you want to min-max it a little bit out, you can go with Entropy, or you can go with the two-handed Momentum to add a little bit even more healing on this one, just cause why not. For this, you also get Major Force for 10 seconds if you get the third one, and it can only occur every 2 seconds, but that's really easy to, you know, yeah, you get a lot of sweet rolls when you're in a fight. For the second set, we went with the Dragon's Appetite. The reason why I went with this set is purely because of the name, Appetite. We do have a huge appetite that has this fat little orc. And increase your damage done to bleeding enemies by 225, and every time you deal non-bleeding damage to enemies, you get a persistent stack of the Dragon's Appetite once half per second, and after 10 stacks you consume the Dragon's Appetite and heal yourself quite a bit. And yeah, there's not much else to it. For the dueling, I went with the Master one. I went with the Flame Enchant. The Poison one is just because I didn't want to stack it, and it's kind of best in slot. However, you can play around, see whatever enchant you want to go here. For the back bar, I went with the Maelstrom Greatsword infused with weapon damage and spell damage, increasing our overall damage as we can, because we are kind of squeezing in a little bit of the meta formula, but not going purely meta. For alternatives, or some alternative sets, we have quite a couple of them actually. I didn't want to go with the monster set because I didn't find anything that could, you know, synchronize really well. However, you can play around and maybe find something that you really enjoy. Maybe you want to go with a more health recovery type of build. In that case, I recommend going with Troll King. Priotheric summons a couple of blades around you, spinning, and cuts your enemy even further. Grothgar have a little lava pool around you, basically cooking your enemies even further. Glorgolok, I have no idea how to pronounce this one. While in combat, then you stand around, don't do anything, you get a stack of Fortress, basically having meat on your own body, and that could be quite a fun sight to have. Yeah, you can play around with other weapons. I don't know, maybe try Asylum or Black Rose, or I don't know, Master two-hander, maybe Vatshran, go wild. The main focus on this one from the skill lines, I forgot to mention, is that we want to go a little bit into alchemy, because alchemy will help us go with the spices, quote-unquote. We also want to go with provisioning, and drinks and food is kind of our main thing. For the food that I use as stamina, I definitely go with Dubious Comorian Throne. It's the best one I can use. It's cheap and it's really good. You can always go with Clockwork Citrus Fillet, I think that, or was it... yeah, can't remember the other one. Anyways, just go whatever the heck you want. It's a template. You can just play around. For the CP, I went with something really easy. The main two ones I used was Rationer and Liquid Efficiency. The Rationer increasing the duration of food and drinks. This one's a must, considering we're a cook. Liquid Efficiency, same, because we're a cook, we want to use this one. Angler Instincts and Real Technique. The only reason why I went with these two is for the role-playing value, as we are a cook and we want to fish as well, because fish are really nice ingredients. But you can always slot on Steed's Blessing and Gifted Rider instead of these two for a little bit more speed in between missions. For the blue tree, I went with Wrathful Strikes, Reaving Blows. The reason we went with Reaving Blows is because we heal with direct damage, so this one can push our healing or self-healing even more beyond, with the whole theme of eating the enemy alive. Basically a giant-ass cannibal. Fighting Finese, getting some critical damage, and Master at Arms dealing direct damage, considering this one scales off of direct damage. Wrathful Strikes, as I said, you can always go with Oculus Overload if you want enemies to explode at the aim, if you want to go more single target. I don't know, maybe Biting Aura for more damage done with area effect, or Thaumaturge damage over time to increase maybe your bleed or anything. If you want to go with more light attack, you can always go with Weapons Expert. It increases by 20%, considering how in this patch light attacks and heavy attacks are nerfed. I don't know if this one's quite useful anymore, but I don't know, I am no endgame meta, so I really don't care. For the fashion, I went with just the costume. However, the main parts of our outfit style will be the forks I'm using, considering we are a cook. And the Catwall's daggers are just beautiful. You can always go with the fork of Heraldation, I don't know how to pronounce that, from Shoggorath if you have it. If you don't, it's not a problem. You can maybe try out maybe a spoon, but the spoon doesn't look like a spoon, it's more a pan, stick together, I don't know. The fork look more clean. This one has too many nails on it, and the sword, maybe we can go with the sword. However, I want to stick with the daggers. On the back bar, we went with the cleaver to cut apart the bones from the meat while we eat enemy, and this one's actually the Minotaur battle axe. I really like the look on this one. For the armor, I went with Malakath on this one. However, I did wear a costume rather than a outfit style, considering I can't find anything related to a cook. But if you want to utilize your thematics of being a vampire, maybe going with Greymoor is the way to go. You can always try out with combining the vampire and the Namira style, and for that reason we have the Night Hollow. So you can wear maybe Night Hollow for that gluttonous aesthetics. It can look quite nice, very dangerous, however I don't find it to look, you know, cookie as a cook, as we're trying to be a cook and everything. So yeah. But yeah, if you have the original cooking costume and the hat, that would be perfect, but I'm just using the Solitude Steve Doors jerkin because it looks like a Seville guy. I went with a little mustache here, just you know, yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and a little bit of gameplay footage, just because, you know, you can see that you can play this build in normal content easily. And I will see you around.
So you're the one who's been undoing our work. We will feed you to the Master's mace.